go downtown and walk and really look at some of these businesses or what's going on inside, and that will spur a lot of creative ideas. It's a great practice. It makes you present versus distracted, and that's a battle these days. But it's certainly a battle worth fighting.
Hey there, on this episode, of course, we talk about the creative process, and we also dig into the importance of being involved in your local community. I was joined by my friend Jeff Perlman. He is the former mayor of Delray Beach, currently the executive director of Carl Angus DeSantis Foundation, which supports Broward and Palm Beach nonprofits. He's also a playwright and author. He created the Cafe on Main and the books Adventures in Local Politics and Lessons in Life and Leadership, about his relationship with Carl DeSantis, who is a major backer of Celsius and the founder of Rexall Sundown Vitamins. This was such a delightful conversation. I hope you enjoy. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on the show.
I'm so happy to be here, Kate.
We've known each other a long time. I don't even know how long.
We have in various lives.
Yes, I think I originally met you way back when I worked at the Boca Chamber. So we've been friends a long time, and we recently reconnected at an event of a friend of ours. And we got to talking, and you mentioned the podcast, and then we were talking about the creative process. And I know you as an entrepreneur and as a politician and all of the incredible things that you do in the community, just a community advocate. That's how I kind of know you. And so we're talking at this event and you're sharing with me, oh yeah, and I write screenplays, and you're talking all about creativity. And then you tell me that you listen to the show, and I thought, oh my gosh, that is so interesting. I never would have thought that you did any of those things, which is what I love so much about the importance of creativity and the creative process in business and in life, because everyone has some kind of creative dream that many people don't know about, they don't talk about. And so I thought, hey, let's have you come on the show and talk a little about everything that you've done, and then get into the writing process for you and writing these screenplays. So if somebody were to ask you, Jeff, you've done so many different things, how would you describe your body of work?
Eclectic. And we have a lot in common, Kate, because not only we run into some of the same circles, but I've seen you do so many different things too. So I've never, I just have had a kind of a wild path, that just in various lives. Journalism, I started in newspaper journalism, then went into local politics, then wrote some books, have a blog, started a local magazine, owned a newspaper for a while, went into beverages, hot sauce. I'm running a foundation now. It's been a very interesting, varied career, and it's still going strong. So I think it keeps you fresh.
Yeah. And it's really, to me, it feels like the epitome of a creative life. You always put yourself in situations where you were meeting different people and discovering different things and really leaning into your curiosity. So how did that go? How does one get into all of those different industries? What did that look like? Did you just say yes to everything, or were you persuaded into some of this stuff?
It's interesting because I say yes to the things that my gut tells me to say no to, because I've found that growth comes when you're uncomfortable. So none of any of these things that I've gotten into have been a natural thing. I've not been confident about any of them, but I've kind of pushed myself to go out there and at least try. And you realize that the worst that can happen is you fail, and that's not terrible, because failure is seldom fatal or final. And the best that can happen is you learn something, even in your mistakes. So some of it works out better than others, but all of it has been interesting, and all of it has been a learning process that leads to the next growth spurt. So I've just learned to say yes to things that scare me a little bit, but also interest me on other levels.
That reminds me of Shonda Rhimes' book, Year of Yes, where she just says yes to everything.
I've had a life of yes.
Yes. I like that. A life of yes. Yeah, that's so awesome. And I love that you lean into it's almost what you are scared to do, you lean into knowing that there's so much beauty on the other side of that fear. And when we say yes to some things that maybe we're not sure of, right? Like we don't know what could potentially happen. And to lean into those things so fully is challenging for a lot of people. So for you to live your life in that way, that's really cool.
It's interesting, and I think the beauty of life is the serendipity. Like I never, if somebody would have came to me in my 20s and said, you'll be mayor of a place called Delray Beach. I'd never even heard of Delray Beach at that time. Life is just what happens when you do lean in, you do say yes, and you're open to different experiences. And I've kind of trained myself against my inner instincts are not to do that, but I push myself out into that limb a little bit, and it's worked out.
What has been, or do you have a favorite like project? Again, there's lots of businesses you've been involved in, you've been in publishing, you've written books, you've done a lot of different things. Is there one that you really feel was your favorite, you really shined and you were able to gain the most skills or just have the most fun doing?
That's a great question, and I've really enjoyed everything, but sometimes things run its course. So I was incredibly passionate early on in my career about community journalism. Loved working for a newspaper, loved being in a newsroom, thought it was the greatest job on the planet. No 2 days were alike. You work with really smart, funny people. You interview very interesting people. And that kind of phased my life past. And then I really dove into local politics and was very passionate about trying to move my community forward and dealing with the challenges and the pressures and the policy and the politics. And when it ended, I was okay with that. I didn't want to go on. I thought I already had the coolest job in politics, being mayor of a city you love. I don't want to go anywhere else. And then we dove into business, and I got involved in Celsius in the early days of that energy drink, which was just an incredible experience, and to help build a brand and to lay the foundation that others took to the moon after that part ended. So it to me, they're all like my favorite while I'm doing it. Um, and then I know when if I ever feel stuck, there seems to always be another chapter. And right now it's writing. It's I'm doing some screenwriting. I'm doing a lot of playwriting, and I'm also involved in the Carl Angus DeSantis Foundation. So I'm learning about philanthropy, and I'm very passionate about philanthropy. And it's full circle for me back to the community, but without the politics. So it's like this is perfect.
What do you feel is so important about local politics and being involved in our communities? There is so much that we can do locally with our local politicians and our community and the nonprofits that are here to support and to give back and to serve the community in which we live. So, why was it important for you to become the mayor and be able to help change and do good locally?
Well, for me, it started with passion for community, passion for my particular city, Delray. But politics on a local level, it's about what's possible. And the potential is enormous because if you have a good idea on a Tuesday night at a commission meeting and two other people, not 200 other people, two other people agree with you, Wednesday morning, things can start to change. So at no other level of politics can you have that kind of immediate impact. And for me, it was a job to do, not a job to have. And there's a difference. I knew there was term limits. You're only guaranteed at the time 2 years at a time before you had to face the voters again. So I had a sense of urgency to move the needle and get things done and think about the big picture. We call them the big rocks, and not get mired down in the in sometimes local politics can be very petty and very small, but we were trying to, the group I was with, trying to focus on some of the bigger picture things, economic development. How do we make our downtown as good as it can be? How do we bring the arts and culture to the fore in Delray? Where do we fit in to the landscape in Palm Beach County? So all of those big things were really exciting and very passionate. It was a passion play for me, with a sense of urgency. So, we really pushed hard for those years I was there. And that's the beauty of local politics. I think at any other higher level, you don't get that. It's, you may have an idea and it can't get out of a committee, or it just gets watered down and you don't even recognize it. This is like a place where we could actually get things done.
Yeah, we met when I was at the Boca Chamber, and this was the start of my career. And I did not know about chambers of commerce. And I met really interesting entrepreneurs and philanthropists. And oh my gosh, and there's tons of nonprofit organizations that have great missions that we get to support. And it was there that I really fell in love with downtowns and being
Hmm.
able to support the local businesses. Even now I get to work with West Palm Beach, and we do a show called West Palm Inspired, and we highlight and feature the businesses that are downtown and hoping to get people to come in and support these people. And I get to meet these incredible entrepreneurs. And I'm thinking of one that's just a bakery down the street, and this guy was on the Food Network channel winning awards or winning those cupcake wars or whatever it is. And it's just so cool. We have so many incredible people in our local community. In fact, I was just at a Creative Mornings event, and we got to meet one of the local artists, and she's fully earning a living as an artist. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. There's just so many cool people in our community that are locally famous, doing really incredible things. And I just think it's so fun to spotlight and highlight and be involved in the community. There's so much value in that. So,
Don't you get energy from that too? Like when you meet the creatives in our community, and they're everywhere if you choose to look, um,
yes.
feeds your creative life because they're inspirational, doing so many amazing things on this local level. They're so entrepreneurial and they're risking so much. But that's what makes our communities so dynamic and so interesting. And those are the people that ultimately move the place forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's always funny when people travel, because people will travel and it's almost like it's easier for us to see the beauty when we travel and we say, we met these incredible people and they had these beautiful downtowns, and they go on and on. But what about if you shifted the lens and looked at your community differently? What if, in fact, I just read an article. Guess what? The number one, there was an article that was ranking destinations. West Palm Beach was number one destination for people to visit in the state of Florida, which is so cool. And obviously Delray Beach, I mean, you can't even talk. Delray Beach is just the best. I mean, everyone loves Delray. It is so eclectic, so adorable, so fun. And sometimes I almost feel like we take it for granted because we live here and we get so used to it. But I often will remind myself to just kind of shift that perspective or encourage others to do that, because every city, every downtown has its own beauty and its own authenticity, and just the way that it's run and the leadership and the entrepreneurs, but they're everywhere. This is what I love about what you've done, Jeff. Even when you said if something isn't going necessarily the way that you wanted to, or maybe that time has ended, there's something else that you want to jump into. Not everybody sees the world that way. That is a gift that you have been able to give yourself to be able to do that. And I think the same thing is true with life when we're thinking about our own communities and how to get involved and change that you want to make in your life.
And I think you make some great points. And I was told as a young child, my dad was a small businessman. He owned a pharmacy. That to wake up a little bit scared every day. Now that sounds doesn't sound great, but when you think about it, he meant it that even though he was doing well with his particular store, he woke up every day thinking, okay, how can I do even better? He never got complacent. complacency was a killer in his mind. And so I think you got to look at cities that way too. That as great as Delray is, what's next? We should always be asking what's next. Doesn't mean you have to sacrifice the charm or the vibe that everybody loves, but it does mean you can't be complacent. And I'm not surprised to see what's happening with West Palm being rated so highly as a destination, because what's happening there as a student of cities really excites me. I mean, the vibe coming out of West Palm is next level. I mean, it's a world class city that's evolving in real time, right before our eyes.
I know.
Very.
I love it. It's so great. All right, let's shift into right now. You're focused a lot on your writing and screenplays and plays. I am fascinated by this. In fact, I was telling you when we had reconnected that I have been reading some more books on fiction, just storytelling and how to develop characters. And I also am part of, I'm what's that called? Masterclass. I go into masterclass, and they have quite a few different authors that speak about their writing process. And so I got to watch Shonda Rhimes talk about how she was producing, writing, creating 2-3 shows at a time, which is wild. And then Mindy Kaling, who is another favorite of mine that I just love, and she has a masterclass on kind of the same thing, and she talks about the writer's room and what it was like, and how you have to collaborate and the things that you do. And I just find that whole world fascinating. I have not delved into writing fiction, or definitely not a play, or anything like that, but in my book I actually did write some dialogue. And it was funny because my writing coach, she would always comment on my on the dialogue, and I had to learn how to actually write good dialogue. The dialogue I was writing, she was like, "People don't talk like that, Kate." I'm like, "Yes, this is exactly what he said." And she was like, "I doubt that." And so it was so interesting to me. So talk about what got you curious about this. And then I want to hear a little bit about your writing process.
I have always loved to write, but I've never written a lot of fiction. It was always journalism, opinion, but it was never anything that was making up characters. So it was a different muscle to develop, and that intrigued me. So I started going to saw some things at Artist Garage, some staged play readings, and we go a lot to Theater Lab at FAU, which is incredible. And I just thought, I'd like to try this. It's something very different for me. It's totally out of my comfort zone. I don't know how to write dialogue, but I'm going to try. And so I started to just sit down and try to figure this out. Read a couple of books, listened to some podcasts, tried to self teach a little bit. I did take an online class, and then started to apply it. And the Delray Playhouse runs a new play festival, they every year, and I hit send against my better judgment at the time, as I wasn't sure if it was any good, and they selected it, and it got produced in October, and it was the most amazing experience, Kate. The collaboration, the watching it be cast, watching what a director and talented actors can do with you, and then hearing your words come back was magical. And I thought, where have you been all my life? Because I should have been doing this like 20 years ago. But I definitely got bit by the bug. I love the collaborative aspect of it, and seeing it come to life is just a big thrill. So I'm fully in now, and it's for me, writing is cathartic. It helps order my thoughts, and it's a totally different muscle than writing an opinion or a blog or doing an interview with someone. And I find that to be really exciting. So that's my journey. It's still going on.
Yeah. So what was that like? Do you get in there and restructure the writing? When you present it to them, how much did they change? When you hand over a script and someone says, yes, let's produce this.
What I've learned is screenwriting is really a director's medium where the screenwriter hands in the script and you lose control a lot, or they'll rewrite things. The stakes are higher because of the budgets, etc. But in playwriting, it's a writer's medium. So I found that they really weren't changing. Now, she would make some suggestions. She would say this needs to be trimmed. What do you? But it was I always had that agency that it's your play. But here's a suggestion. Now the director was amazing, and every suggestion she made was spot on. And then I would go back and rework a couple of sections. And what's interesting is you could read on the page, but until you hear it out loud, done by actors and actresses, that's a very different experience. So sometimes you'll say, wow, this seems to be working. And then you hear it out loud and it's very flat. Or other things that you kind of stressed over, these actors figured out how to make it sing. So that I find the process just incredible. I mean, there's nothing like that energy and that creative exchange between the writer, director, and the acting talent. I just think it's the so magical.
So what was the play about? How many people were involved? Like, how many actors needed to be cast? What does that look like?
It was called the Cafe on Main, and it's a series of love stories that take place at one table in one downtown cafe, and overseen by a world wise proprietor who's kind of seen all these love stories unfold over the years. For locals, the proprietor I kind of modeled on the owner and founder of Cafe Luna Rosa, who's lived like 6 lives. Fran Marincola is a good friend of mine. And so I was writing that character with Fran in mind. We had five actors. We had 2 sets of couples, a middle-aged couple that was trying to discover love for a second time, and a younger couple that the female had wanderlust and she wanted to see the world, and the young man that was in love with her had deep ties. It was the ties that bound him to his hometown. He wanted to take over his dad's business, and how they kind of trying to work that out with the proprietor kind of giving commentary on life and love. So it was a lot of fun. The sitting in the audience to watch it be on when you go through all these rehearsals, then you get to the show day, and then it's talk about nerves. Like, is this going to go over well or not? But it went over well, thank goodness. And that was another charge, just to be among the crowd. And I'm like, well, they're laughing where they should be laughing, that's good. They're feeling emotions where they should, because there were some, poignant scenes. And it just was, I just keep coming back to the word magic. That live energy is so magical.
I love that concept. I love that idea. I could even just picture it. How did you come up with that idea? To just like one table, multiple love stories.
Well, it's interesting because I went to a coffee shop. I don't even drink coffee. I was at the coffee district, and I just saw this couple at this table. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to what has happened at this particular table? And a lot of my inspiration for writing is moments, like a lot of moments that a lot of other people just kind of ignore. I try to see them and understand them and flesh them out. And I just thought, man, I bet you, if this place could talk. I know there's so many business ideas that have come out of these coffee shops. There's romances that have blossomed or ended there. And wouldn't that be an interesting concept to flesh out? So that's where it started. And I have a follow-up to that is the Arts Garage in Del Rey has agreed to produce a full version of this in this coming October. So I'm really excited about that and going to that space
Oh
because
my
it's a cool
gosh.
thing.
So this goes back to our conversation around your local community. I think so often people think I have this play that I'm writing and I need to get it into the hands of some director in LA who can make movies and have millions of dollars. But here you are locally, you have these connections and you're reaching out to these smaller organizations that this is what they do. They're trying to bring art and plays and work to the community. Arts Garage is amazing. They have tons of different types of shows and musicians and acts. And to be able to go there, I feel like to me, that just feels much more attainable. And what a fun playground to be able to learn from these individuals. And again, they're local, but some of the people that are running these organizations and are part of them, they have experience all over the world.
They do. And there's world-class talent right here.
Yes.
And I saw that just in the casting of this play, which was done last July, middle of the summer. I think it was a holiday weekend, and 150 actors and actresses show up from all over the place. And the quality was, I was blown away. And these local theaters and arts venues, they're doing amazing things, and we have an opportunity here in South Florida to develop our own talent and to give a platform for creatives that we don't have to go to New York or LA. It could happen here. It's all the pieces are in place, including the audience that I think is hungry for new material. So I think it's an exciting time in the arts, an exciting time for creatives to be right where we are right today.
Yeah, absolutely. So what else are you writing? What else are you working on?
I got
What's
a
your
ton
next
of
project?
more plays that I'm working on. Short plays, that's like a thing now. These 10-minute plays, which there's all these festivals. I am sending those out to both local and to wherever there's an opportunity. I dusted off some screenplays that I've had that I did years ago and put them in a drawer, literally. And I'm dusting them off and finding like, well, they're not that bad. I'm going to apply my 15 more years of perspective and what I'm learning in playwriting to kind of polish those and see where that could go. So it's a very creative season that I'm in right now, which is feels really good, and because it's good not to be stuck. And I just feel like this is a new season that I'm entering, and I don't feel like any pressure. I don't. It's not. I'm not expecting to make a living out of this. I'm very happy with philanthropy and where I am, but this is a great outlet, and to not have a financial pressure and to be able to create is kind of I feel very lucky to be in that position because I know a lot of starving artists out there. So it for me it's taken some pressure off and I can just kind of play a little bit.
Do you have a particular writing process? Like how much time every day do you dedicate to writing? What does that look like?
I write every day, and that's not something that is for everyone because I think it could potentially lead to burnout. But for me, it's how I relax. So I'm a big adherent of that book, The Artist's Way, and they ask you to do morning pages every day, and so I do get up early and I write. And it's a good way to order my mind for the day. It's a good way to greet the day. And some interesting things come out. Some days are better than others, but that method really works. It's worked for me. It's worked for a lot of others. I've read into this artist's way. There's something very freeing about just putting something on a blank page first thing in the morning for me. And often at night it helps me to relax, to just kind of gather my thoughts of the day. And I'm constantly quote unquote writing, even when I'm not at a typewriter. I'm looking at the world around me. I'm looking at that table in the coffee district. I'm watching that couple in the park and kind of wondering what they're about. There's so many moments and so many things to take in that can spur a creative path.
Do you have creative friends, meaning those other people in your life that they're going after their dreams, they're pursuing some type of creative project that you can call or talk to if you feel a little bit stuck or you want to work out an idea?
I do. And some of them are creative in business and really, really smart people. So it's not necessarily art, but I admire them as entrepreneurs. And I'll send them a rough draft and I'll ask for their honest opinion. And I typically get back, something, very insightful. Um, I don't have, I have a couple of writer friends that I'm meeting in some of these playwriting groups that I've joined. It's a very welcoming community, which is nice. So yeah, and I listen to a tremendous amount of podcasts that have interviews with writers and creatives, and I've reached out to them based on what I'm hearing on the shows, and just I can't think of anyone who hasn't reached back out. So I've made friends by seeking them out, constantly on the kind of hunt for interesting people that I could reach out to and just say, look, I appreciate what you're doing and start a dialogue.
What are some of your favorite podcasts?
Well, yours, I love yours because I think the subject matter is great and you're a great interviewer. I love Playwrights Spotlight. There's one called Quill and Curtain that interviews playwrights that are great. There's a lot of writing. My writing life is really good. I like anything that Guy Raz does on the entrepreneurial side, how people build things, how these businesses came into being. Those are my absolute favorites. And I have a namesake. His last name is Jeff Perlman, who is a best-selling author, and he's got a writing podcast called Two Writers Slinging Yang. I don't even know what it means, but Jeff and I have become acquainted because we sometimes get mistaken for each other, so we got to know each other. And he's done, he's been a lot more successful as a writer. I mean, he's got best-selling books and he's got one coming out on Tupac real soon, and his stuff has been made into movies. He did Winning
Oh,
Time, yeah,
that's so interesting.
podcast. He really loves writers. He loves platforming writers.
And he has the same name as you. That's
Same
so
name,
cool.
but he spells his last name with an A.
Oh
So,
my
all
gosh. All right, I'll have to
right,
check him out. And then I will share, not that you need more podcasts to listen to, but David Perel, who he has a podcast called How I Write. He interviews some of the best writers, and it's all about the writing process and how to be a better writer. And it's so fascinating. So I love listening to his podcast. And then, of course, I'm a huge fan of Mike Birbiglia's podcast, Working It Out.
he's great.
He's great. And I love that because they're working out jokes. I mean, not the whole podcast or anything, but I do find that to be really interesting. I'm always fascinated. That's why I like this podcast, because I like hearing how people work, how they decide what to work on. Do they have a creative practice? Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, comes up all the time, which is great. I mean, she's just the standard for writing and doing it
Amazing.
every day and exploring, and but she's great.
I'll
All right.
find
So,
I'm interested in, and I'll search in Spotify for where they're interviewed and get on those podcasts.
oh yeah, you'll love David Perel's podcast. In fact, what's crazy is I almost signed up for, he had a writing course workshop. I don't know what you call it. It was in real time. You actually could go and write with other writers, but he ended up closing down that business. And I thought it was very interesting the way that he did it, because he actually sent out an email and said, hey, this is the last year I'm doing this. And he described why, which I thought was very cool as an entrepreneur, just to kind of share, hey, this is such an incredible community. We've provided so much value, but I think the business model might not have been what he expected it to be. And so now I think he's really going all in on the podcast and some of the other, I mean, he's a writer and an author, but he's very interesting. His questions are fascinating to writers, and each one has a different angle. He's interviewed some cool people. So he's another one to check out. All right, Jeff, since you listen to the show, you know that I always ask my guests at the end, what is one activity that the listeners can do in 10 minutes or less to live a more creative life?
Well, if I can do two things, I don't know if that's breaking the rules, but one we touched on, I think those artist pages in the morning are invaluable. Even if you feel you have nothing to say, the artist way will tell you to get a piece of paper and write in longhand. But sometimes, I'll just do a note on my iPhone, and I find that that's helping just as much. But before you start your day, just kind of freelance on your thoughts for a few minutes. And the other thing I would recommend is and it sounds very simple, because it is, open your eyes. I mean, we live in such an amazing place, and there's inspiration in any direction you look. And I see a lot of people, and I'm guilty of it at times, where we're just, addicted to our screens, and we're missing a lot of things that are right in front of us. And so, take a walk in a park and get inspired. Go downtown and walk and really look at some of these businesses or what's going on inside. And that will spur a lot of creative ideas. It's a great practice, and it makes you present versus distracted. And that's a battle these days, but it's certainly a battle worth fighting.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Jeff, I'm so glad that we got to do this. I am so excited for this new journey of yours. It's so cool that you just kind of started and you already have plays that are out there that people are watching and enjoying. And it's so cool. I love it.
Oh, thank you. And this has been such a pleasure. I've been a fan of yours for a long time, as well as a friend, but you do such a good job. You're an amazing interviewer, a great writer and host and everything. So I'm excited to see what's next for you as well.
Aw, thanks, Jeff. Well, so much more to come in our creative lives, and we'll be along for the journey for each other.
Thanks again.
I hope this episode inspired you in some way. Jeff has lived such a creative life and has had his hands in so many different projects. I hope that you're inspired to think about your community differently. Think about some of the projects that you have said no to, that maybe it's time to say yes to. Lean into that fear a little bit, lean into that uncomfortableness, knowing that what's on the other side could be so cool and so huge and so great and beyond what you even thought possible. Now, Jeff didn't mention this on the episode, but after we stopped recording, he shared with me that 80% of playwrights never get anything produced. 80% of people have created some kind of work that unfortunately never got on stage and never got into the right hands or whatever the case, which makes it even cooler that Jeff has created something that another human said, yes, let's make this. Let's find the actors. Let's get the location. Let's find the audience and put it out into the world. That is so cool. Here's an example that it is possible. Yes, I know, even if there are lots of plays that will never see the light of day, yours could be the play that does. Yours could be the book that does, or the podcast, or the poem, whatever it is that you want to create. That's just so cool. I also love that he said he does this work because of the joy of it, because he loves to do it. He has fun with it. And that's what this show is about, right? So, whatever you're curious about right now, whatever you want to be making, get after it. Go make it. And reach out to someone in your local community and find other creatives. Find those other people that are out there making and doing interesting things, and discover something new and meet new friends. That's what living a creative life is all about. As always, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. And until next time, go create something.